This is CNN Money Switzerland with your latest coronavirus news updates. I'm Maria Montero. In an unprecedented move never before seen during peacetime, the 2020 Olympics will now take place in 2021. We've got the details up ahead. Plus, Swiss tech in demand. As the need for sensors in ventilators grows exponentially, we talked to SENSIRION CEO Mark van Waldrik about dealing with the bottleneck. And millions have been transformed into remote workers in record time, but not for all companies. Consultancy Oliver Wyman says a recent survey shows the struggle to make it work from home is real for at least 60% of the Swiss workforce. What seemed unlikely just weeks ago is now a done deal. Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and IOC President Thomas Bach agreed this Tuesday to officially postpone the Olympics to 2021. The IOC has been facing mounting pressure to delay the Games, originally scheduled to take place this summer in Japan from July 24th to August 9th. The financial implications of postponing the Olympics could be huge. Here to break it down for us is Alexander Waefler. He is head of media relations at Swiss Olympics. Alexander, thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
I mean, be honest with me. In spite of the IOC's reluctance, do you think this could have gone any other way?
No, the science shows that this is going to be the way it is, and the postponement was something the IOC in the end had to do after all that happened in the last few days.
And what for you was the tipping point? What do you think really took this over the edge into postponement?
I think in the end it was several national Olympic committees who requested to the IOC to postpone these games. Swiss Olympic did that as well just yesterday. And you also had other countries who even said that they're not going to send their athletes to the Olympic Games, and that certainly was a tipping point.
Now, including the Swiss Olympic team, I mean, as I understand it, you sent a letter just yesterday to Thomas Bach asking for the postponement of the Games. How unanimous was this request from your side?
From our side, it was our executive board, and after an intense and a long and a good discussion, the decision was unanimous to request for that postponement.
So there wasn't anyone saying, no, we should still have them?
No, not at all. Not at all, because, we could see how difficult it was for the athletes to train properly, and also the thing with the qualifications event who could not be held. And there was a big uncertainty among the athletes, so it was clear that we would ask for something like this.
I mean, when I think about it, I can only imagine that this was basically a nightmare scenario for many of your athletes.
Of course, they were training hard. They were looking forward for probably their biggest event in 4 years. And in the end, or on the other side, they couldn't train. As I said, they couldn't train properly anymore. And that caused a lot of uncertainty, also a lot of emotion. And in the end, I think it was also for the good of the athletes that this decision was made.
I mean, because as I understand it, there are athletes that even postpone going to university. They postpone life events. I mean, this is a major redirection in their lives. Of
course, and it's also you could say it's a historical moment because the Olympic Games have never been postponed. They have been canceled before. And of course, for the athletes, that's a big thing. Everybody has to reschedule now. The IOC has to reschedule, the organizing committee, and also Swiss Olympic has to reschedule.
Talk to me about Swiss Olympic. I mean, there's been, again, a lot of discussion around the massive financial implications of this postponement. What does this mean for you? How does this affect your funding now and moving forward to next year?
Of course, it will affect us a little bit, but I think there are other NOCs that are affected more, since you might know that Swiss Olympic gets a lot of money from the Swiss Federation and also mainly from the Swiss lotteries. And we're not that much funded by sponsors as probably other NOCs are. So I think we can take that blow. It's not not such a difficult situation for us as it might be for other countries.
Lucky Swiss team then, right?
Exactly, yes.
Now, the Games will be played in 2021. but still under the banner, of course, of Tokyo 2020. Walk me through what this means actually for the athletes. What's going to happen to the qualification rounds? Will they be repeated? I mean, how will they work this out?
Well, that's certainly something we have to work that out together with the Swiss federations, and also the IOC will have to do that with the international federations. It's certainly a complicated thing, but I think in the end we will find a way that in the end, we will have the Swiss athletes at the Olympics who deserve to be at the Olympics.
Wonderful. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for your insights, Alexander. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome.
More analysis of the Olympics postponement coming up later in the program, but first, some other headlines this Tuesday. The Swiss Economic Forum, which brings together businesses from across Switzerland, has been postponed because of coronavirus. It was due to be held in May and will now go ahead on 2nd and 3rd of September. Now, because of limited hotel capacity in Interlaken, where it usually takes place at that time of the year, the event will be held in Montreux. Organizers say this is a one-time move. And demand is soaring for the government's short-time program, which covers the salaries of employees working reduced hours. The government said it has received applications for 400,000 employees from 27,000 companies, corresponding to about 8% of the Swiss workforce. And some good news for parents, especially now with many school kids at home. After waiting for what seems like forever, Disney has finally rolled out its Disney Plus streaming service to EMEA countries, including Switzerland, Germany, Italy, and the UK, starting this week. Now, as the coronavirus crisis grows, so too does the need for ventilators around the world. Earlier, Olivia Chang caught up with Mark van Valdrik, CEO of Swiss manufacturer SENSIRION, to talk about the growing demand for sensors in these devices.
So we have actually two types of sensors which are going into ventilators. One of them, those is actually a flow sensor, which is monitoring the air which is going into the patients and also the air which is going out of the patients. In parallel, we also monitor the mixture between air and oxygen in cases of ventilated patients. The second type of sensors we are producing is a humidity and temperature sensor, and typically this sensor is controlling and monitoring the humidity level of the air which is flowing into the patient, which is very important to increase the comfort level for the patient.
So demand for these devices are growing and some regions are already facing shortages. Are you able to supply all the required sensors, or are you also facing production shortages on your side?
It's definitely a very hard time in order to address all the demands or increasing demand in the last days. So you can be sure we do all our very, very best to address all these demands and to increase the capacity as much as we can. So, for example, there are now R&D volunteers and sales volunteers in our company. They are supporting operations in night shifts, in weekend shifts, in order to address all the demands. The bottleneck at the moment is actually more with the suppliers. So we are in close contact with all the key suppliers in order to get enough raw material to support these initiatives to increase the capacity for sensors and ventilator sensors.
Right now, are you designing by volume and not only functionality, given that there is a sense of urgency from the pandemic?
Yeah, so actually there are two initiatives they are going. One is definitely to produce just more of the sensors they are already existing on the world for ventilators. So to support all our ventilator manufacturers, they have already ventilator devices in their portfolio, and they like actually to increase the capacity there. But we have definitely to be sure, clear and aware that this is actually, there is some limitations. If you have a device, a ventilator device, which is produced typically 10,000 times a year, you can't scale that up by a factor of 20 within weeks. So the other initiative, which was started by different worldwide collaborations, is actually to work on a ventilator system, which is based on components. They are produced anyway in millions. So if it's possible and manageable to to design a ventilator which is based on high volume components, the scale up later on is significantly easier. Whether it's possible to do so, we will see in the next couple of weeks, but we definitely support also these R&D initiatives to come to this dream actually slightly closer.
So let's talk about your own sensors from SENSIRION. What has the demand been like? How much is it in terms of comparing to, say, last year, for example?
So the situation is actually extremely fluid at the moment. So every day is changing. At the moment, we face a demand increase by a factor of 3 up to 6 times. Not all our manufacturers or customers, they have already a clear picture about the demand for the next couple of months. So we are in close collaboration with them to identify their demand for the next weeks or months.
Which regions and countries are you seeing this demand primarily coming from?
So actually, we have a market share for ventilator sensors of approximately 40% of the worldwide market. So that's also the base that we are actually serve all customers worldwide. So we see higher demand for Chinese manufacturers. We see the very same for German, UK-based, American-based. So actually, at the end of the day, all the ventilators manufacturers worldwide, they are working on higher capacity.
I know you touched on this a little bit earlier, but I wanted to probe you on it. How is SENSIRION dealing with increased production at a time when other companies are simply sending people to work from home?
So definitely it's not the only thing what we are doing. So we have a lot of other products. Some of them are also affected by the fact that, for example, automotive industry has shut down. So we can definitely reallocate some of our operator capacity and capabilities. On the other hand, we are a very agile company with an extremely strong team spirit. So there is actually a very high motivation of the whole staff to support operations in this situation and to give our support for the worldwide initiatives to fight against this virus. So it's pretty easy to motivate people from R&D and sales to support operations in night shifts or in weekend shifts to make the best what we can to produce as much sensors as possible.
Let's take a long-term view. What do you think could be the longer-term impacts of coronavirus on a business like yourself? You're obviously going to be looking very closely at consumer sentiment in the months afterwards.
Well, I think it's too early to assess at the moment. So we are very highly diversified in terms of markets. So we are serving medical, we are serving automotive, but also industrial applications. So this is definitely an advantage in this situation. But I think we all cannot actually imagine how the world will look like in 6 months or 3 months from now on after the crisis. So some people are expecting a deep recession. Some others, they expect more a fast recovery after the crisis. So I think based on these scenarios, the impact for our business is heavier or easier. But we have just to wait and do our best now to support the fight against the virus.
Mark, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
The coronavirus pandemic has transformed millions of people across the world into remote workers in record time. However, not every company has this option. According to a recent survey by management consultancy firm Oliver Wyman, only 40% of the Swiss workforce can successfully work from home, with infrastructure and access to data among the biggest challenges. Nordal, thank you so much for being with us. Now, of course, there's more and more companies around the world encouraging their employees to work from home, but you're telling us that it's far from being possible for everyone.
Well, employees are telling us this. Our last piece of research suggests that only 40% of Swiss workforce can work potentially from home. And of those, half of them have some difficulties with respect to making it happen. Many of those difficulties are linked to infrastructure.
Okay, talk to me about what some of these infrastructure challenges are.
Well, it is partly it is the basics, being equipped with a notebook, being equipped perhaps with a microphone or a video camera. Part is dealing with accessing relevant data in the network of the company.
And here, talk to me about Switzerland. I mean, is Switzerland especially unprepared in this way, or how do we compare to other countries in Europe that are going through the same situation?
I wouldn't say so. Actually, Switzerland and German-speaking countries are in the middle field in that respect, with adoption of remote working. At the top, there is the UK and the Nordics. At the bottom, rather, the southern countries. So in a way, infrastructure is there. Readiness also is there. We know that Swiss are actually keen on technology and IT. It's simply the fact that we are in a new situation. Home office all of a sudden becomes a priority for many more than usually we're exposed to it. And then we discover what are the itches at the moment.
And what can be done to overcome some of these challenges?
Well, there are several levels of measures. Of course, infrastructure is the one that everybody talks about and thinks about, and that's also why we see now a surge in monitors being sold, computer screens, as well as hardware, for those who want to equip themselves a bit better for working from home. But there are also organizational topics related to that, ways of working that, of course, will take longer for many companies to adopt in order to make the most out of remote working.
And of course, one of the challenges when you're remote, and so many people are remote working, is that the telecommunication systems are overburdened, and you're seeing these really strong peaks. For example, a lot of talk of Netflix peaking at lunchtime, for example, and really creating a bit of a bottleneck situation.
Absolutely.
I mean, how do you manage this kind of thing?
Absolutely, and we will see what happens in that respect. But it is two effects colliding one against each other. Yeah, on the one end, for business purposes, a surge in demand from home, and on the other end, of course, the consumption of home movie and home materials going up at the same time. So both of which eating on the network.
All right, so should there be, for example, a reduction in the bandwidth or in the availability of Netflix?
Well, this is what we can read from the press, and in those cases, probably business comes first for the benefit of the country, of course. So while I cannot say whether this will happen, it's one of the measures that is being discussed at the moment, certainly.
And where does, because of course the flip side of this is cybersecurity. One of the important topics now also is cybersecurity. How do you factor this in, and what could be done?
Well, do you mean cybersecurity for those working from home with respect to working from the office before?
Yes.
Yes, well, in that respect, I personally don't think that there is such a big difference. As long as the hardware that is used for working from home is a corporate hardware, when then the same security standards actually should be valid. So the cybersecurity effect of more people working remotely is more related to do's and don'ts with this new way of working, and also more related to some confidentiality, perhaps, that certain tasks and certain materials require, and that has to be enforced if that is part of the work from home, also at home.
So would you say home office is here to stay?
Well, if we look at the results of our last study, 2/3 of workforce rather suspects that it will be business as usual when this thing is over. 1/3 is rather leaning towards a stronger adoption of home working. Personally, I think it's a chance. It's a chance for the future. It's a chance for more flexible, agile way of working. And as such, I would expect that this moves things into that direction, definitely.
All right, let's return now to our top story tonight, the postponement of the Tokyo Olympic Games to 2021. Joining me now is our sports correspondent, Matt Layton.
Hi,
there you are. Hey, it's always great to see you, Matt. You know, flat out, could you see this going any other way?
For the last 3 or 4 days, no, it couldn't, could it? It's just a relief that they've decided to postpone it, and they've managed to, apparently this morning's meeting was quite friendly with the Prime Minister of Japan and the representatives from the IOC. So it seems to have, on the surface, been the least painful solution.
Well, I mean, I'm curious because that, in spite of the fact that the costs are upwards of $28 billion US. I mean, that's the kind of investment that's already been made in infrastructure projects, the village, the hotels, the broadcast rights. I mean, how much of this is going to roll over to next year?
Probably quite a lot. Depends on how you do your accounting. I've read some estimates today that the whole moving of the project could cost up to $6 billion US from various sources, but it's very difficult to see how they come up with that figure. Most of the actual buildings were already in place, like 25 of the 42 buildings are already there. There's 9 or 10 infrastructures that are going to be temporary. Have they started building them? Yes, of course they have. That's going to be quite expensive. But the 8 stadiums that are there, built from new, they'll be there for the next 40 years. So from that perspective, it's not too bad. The painful thing is the 11,000 athletes. They were in 5,000 apartments, which have been sold, were due to made into condominiums. However, the new owners were only due to move in into March 23. So I guess there's some serious negotiations going on there. But yeah, there's huge financial implications. But it would have been a sort of a no. And I can't think of the words. In fact, if it all fell down and it was cancelled, it would be a complete financial catastrophe.
And what about tickets, Matt? I mean, I realize there's not a lot of information out on that yet, but I wonder, especially domestically, the Japanese bought loads of tickets. Are they going to be able to get any of their money back, or anybody else in the world, for that matter?
I don't have inside information. I've looked at quite a few through websites and travel agents, because tickets in Japan, most of them of the 7 million tickets that are going to be on sale, they were individual consumer bought. However, the third parties go through travel agents. I've looked at quite a few travel agent sites, and they're saying, we've contacted Tokyo 2020 to see what's going on, and as soon as we have information, we'll let you know. So the facts are, we actually don't know. But logic saying, you know, Olympics is not a one-off, is it? It's going forward. They'll sort something out.
No doubt. And last question, what is happening to the flame? We've been following it with reduced carriers and the whole bit. Where is it now? What will happen?
Well, it's been in the northern part of Japan, hasn't it? It was supposed to start its ceremony around 121 days, around the 47 prefectures on Thursday. Clearly, that's not going to happen. But I think they've done the right thing. They'll probably put it in a protected area. I'm guessing it's going to be Tokyo, but I don't know. But that's the flame of hope, isn't it? It's the light at the end of the tunnel. And they've confirmed that it's going to be there until the Olympic Games start, sometime before the summer of next year. But we don't actually have a definite date yet.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight and for keeping us posted, as always, Matt. It's a pleasure.
Thanks. See you soon.
And remember, you can all get involved in today's news by checking out our social media pages, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Whatever the comment, reach out. It's always great to hear from you. And of course, don't forget, everything is also available on our website, coronavirus-cnnmoney.ch. Stay safe, stay inside, and we'll see you tomorrow.